When I was 21 years old, an interviewer asked me, "What is the ambition in your life?" I'm sure most of you has been asked this question in one way or another, right? And I answered her in the kind of conviction that only a 21 years old could master. I said my ambition was to change the world. Obviously, that got me into trouble because the interviewer then asked, "How do you plan to do it?" Luckily, I don't know how, I managed to pull this answer out of my head. I said, there's probably 3 ways that I think you could do to change the world. The first, you join an NGO. The second, you get into politics. And the third, which I told her I felt was the most effective way and the way that I'm most passionate about, which is to go into business. You see, back then, I was really fascinated with the Body Shop. It was just a beauty care brand, but it stood for so much. It was trying to tell people the values that she stood for. And I felt that, wow, this is exactly the company that I want to work for, or at least dream to create. But standing here today, you might then question me. What is so novel about that? A business with purpose, ethics, and social responsibility is probably the norm now. Everyone talks about it, from Elon Musk to Richard Branson, even the desperate housewife. So, how do we get from there to here? From profits only, profits then purpose, because companies think that, okay, I have a little money, maybe I'll do some CSR. And now we have a third sector called the social enterprise, B Corp, impact investing. It's worth 40 billion in value. How do we get from there to here? And in fact, in a matter of 10 years to reach the tipping point. So you see, today, I'm not making a case of altruism, creative capitalism, or the need for business to be purposeful. Today, I'm making a case that change is happening so fast in our lifetime. So the irony is, if I have a time machine, maybe I should go back in time to my 21 years old self and tell her, hey, don't worry, change is going to happen anyway. Just sit back, relax, drink some pina colada maybe. But what does this mean? What does this mean if we call ourselves change makers? What does this mean for, so many TEDx speakers today, they're doing all these wonderful things, trying to move the needle of change. Should we just listen to the naysayers who says that you can't do anything about it? So this was the question that eluded me. Or I would call this a master theory or a grand unified theory of changing the world. Perhaps there's something like this out there. I looked at this question from several eyes, from a student activist to a marketeer, a strategist, a consultant, an entrepreneur, an investor, and even to being a daughter, a friend, a sister. And yet, the change was happening so fast, I couldn't even keep up with it. But little did I know, in fact, the answer lied in my chemical engineering study, which in Malaysia, we say that I practically gave it all back to my teacher already lah. I didn't remember a thing. But what I managed to read again was the second law of thermodynamics, or rather, entropy. Entropy explains the chaos in this world. Entropy is all around us. It's as fundamental, as obvious as gravity. It's just that it's so obvious that we don't see it. And you know what? I'm going to do a science experiment right here on the TEDx stage. Shall we? Yes. It's not even a science experiment because I know the outcome. So you see here, I have with me, try to imagine if you will, a puzzle. a puzzle in perfect order. All the colors exactly arranged where it's supposed to be, right? Now, what if, with some accident, I managed to drop this puzzle? Does anyone want to bet that it will fall exactly in the same order? Let's try, for the sake of it. Who knows? Even a 5-year-old won't bet on this. Because the odds are overwhelming against us. The probability of the pieces falling exactly in place is so small that it's close to zero. Entropy is all around us. It's the natural state of things. It brings things from order to disorder, to chaos, to randomness. And interestingly, I realized that it's everywhere. It's the reason why your desk gets messy. It's the reason why you can't unscramble an egg. Organizations fall apart. Marriages fail. And sometimes when we reach a certain point in our life, we start to think, life is too complex. I want to keep it simple. In Vietnam, we know entropy. Try battling traffic. I realized then that, in fact, we were not against some mysterious evil force, a mad scientist or an immoral dictator. It was an objective, natural law of disorder and chaos. It was the natural state of things to move from order to disorder. And in a global scale, we see this happening. Poverty, inequality, climate change, and even war. The reason is because wealth, money, don't get distributed equally by itself. And matters, they don't arrange, by itself to create clothing and shelter for us. So, I have a good news in case you're getting depressed. Because in physics, when there is a force, there is an ability to create an equilibrium force. But when we go against entropy, it would take a tremendous energy and effort. An effort that is just not one person, one team, one organization, or even one country. It takes an effort of the whole humanity, for the first time ever, collaborating together. So this was perhaps the answer. And if you think that perhaps this is impossible, for the first time ever also, humankind has a tool, exponential disruptive technology. Or in simple demonstration, you have a smartphone with you, right? This smartphone is even more powerful and cheaper than a supercomputer in its 70s. How is that possible? And perhaps 10 years from now, I might not even be here speaking to you. I'll be in hologram. Or I don't even need to talk because we would have chips implanted in our mind. That would be how we communicate. And when I say that last description, I'm sure many of you would start shivering. You have fear. And that is completely natural. In fact, I would quote from my favorite author who gave us the Hitchhiker's Guide and popularized the number 42. Douglas Adams, he says that there is basically 3 reactions that is natural for us when it comes to technology. If you're born in this world with the technology already available, it would seem completely normal. Just like TV, a man appears in a box. It's normal for you. If the technology comes when you're about 15 till 30, you would go, dope, that's the coolest thing ever. It's so exciting, and you want to make a career out of it. Now, if the technology comes after 30s, you probably cross your arms and shake your head. Wow, that might be the end of humanity. Reaction to technology. Let me tell you an interesting story. I don't need to go into details about the historical match between man and machine and how this chess master was defeated by an artificial intelligence. But did you know there was, in fact, another competition that happened after? What did it take to beat the supercomputer? What did it take to beat Deep Blue? It took an amateur. Just a chess amateur with 3 laptops. It wasn't another super AI. So, is there a possibility where we use our strategic and creative guidance and power it with machine tactical acuity? Strategy and tactic coming together, the first time ever. We don't need to race against machine. We can race with them. And technology, of course, is a double-edged sword. Just like business and capitalism. But it took about 10 years to reach that tipping point, from then to now. I have another good news, which I believe is something in the spiritual circle. We call it a mass awakening to a higher consciousness. Now, if you're like me and you have a logical scientific mind, I'll use another theory to explain this. It's the theory of spiral dynamics. This was done 40 years ago by a Dr. Graves, a psychologist. What she did was to collect thousands and thousands of different values and worldviews all across the globe. And interestingly, she found that we spiral up in the terms of consciousness, in terms of development, in terms of progress. We start first with being in tier 1, where we are in a survival mode, where egocentricity takes place. We see the world with fear and scarcity. And as we progress and develop, we move up to tier 2, where we start to see the world could be filled with trust, love, and abundance. 40 years ago, she estimated in tier 1, 98%, the majority was there. But I have reason to believe that right now, we're accelerating at a very quick pace to tier 2. Think about that. 10 years ago, would you have dared to sleep at the home of a stranger and have breakfast with them the next day? Or get on a car with a stranger because he or she has a power to drive you anywhere? Or if you find yourself in Japan as a tourist, now probably you can say konnichiwa, knock on the door of someone, and have dinner with the family. In fact, if you want to do a number 1 or 2, there is right now something called Airbnb. Yes, someone is willing to rent out their toilet. Because you see, we actually live in a world of abundance. And with a network of trust, we start to realize that we actually have so much among us if only we knew how to share it. And we'll start to also realize that it's actually not about me and you, us and them, black versus white, north, south, men, women. It's all we, non-duality of we. We are the same. So, entropy, disorder. Perhaps the answer is technology with a collective consciousness. Perhaps it's all about what seems inhuman, empowered with the most human part of us. And what makes us human is the wisdom, empathy, understanding, and love. So, I've been talking in a very conceptual framework right now. Maybe it's time to bring it closer to home. And where is home? Home here is developing Asia, where we all know the economic growth is unequal. We are not so sure whether the invisible hand is letting the resource trickle down to the one who needs it the most. I do not even need to talk about all this reality to you. You know it, you see it every single day. But let me share with you another reality that you might not know. Look at these numbers. 3.6 hours on the mobile internet every day, much more than the United States, and double the time of shopping online. This is not Japan, not Korea. This is right here, Southeast Asia. You have the next billion of people coming onto the internet using technology even more enthusiastically than someone in New York or Berlin. What would they want? What is their desire? What is the ambition of their life? Another reality for you. I've been privileged enough to work with the local communities to understand the kind of reality that's happening on ground. We talk about the unbankable, or the unbanked, which is a huge 70%, right, of the population. Well, guess what? They are taking things in their own hands. And this is not just in Vietnam. You have the same thing also in Indonesia. So what happens here is a group of women, they pool money together into a pot, and they form a kind of cooperative loan. So what it means is that, let's say a mom has a sick child, she could actually withdraw the emergency loan from that fund. Think about it. What kind of communal trust it takes to make this kind of system work? And one more thing, when we were doing study about internet access in the most rural part of Vietnam, you know what we found out? That people were sharing Wi-Fi. They were sharing Wi-Fi to their neighbors. Hey, this is my Wi-Fi password, just use it. Would you think about doing this in the city? Oh no, my bandwidth is going to get throttled, better not. Right. But there, they see abundance already, and without even asking for any benefit in return. So, you see, basically, we need to be next here to the next billion that's rising, the ones that already understand what is abundance, trust, and enthusiastic about technology. Because probably in this lifetime, we could venture build change. And this is the exciting thesis that we have as a technology venture builder. To us, maybe the underserved just means that no one has taken time to understand that market and listen to them. Perhaps wicked hard problems does not take just one startup, but a group of ventures working together cohesively to come out with a solution we can co-create together like never before. With the power of technology, with the power that makes us human. And hopefully, in this lifetime, we will be able to overcome the entropy that has eluded us for centuries. Thank you.